Hey everyone. Today I've got 4 of the most haunting Reddit stories I could find. If you enjoy it, hit subscribe and leave a like. Here we go. Every Christmas morning, there are more gifts under my tree than I've wrapped. She had wrapped 3 gifts the night before. I'm 28 years old and I live alone in my late grandmother's cottage, about 40 minutes outside of town. It's the kind of place people call charming when they visit. All exposed beams and creaky floorboards, and windows that look out over nothing but pine trees. It's quiet here, exactly the kind of quiet I need for my proofreading work. I inherited the place 2 years ago, when Gran passed, and I've grown to love the isolation in ways I never expected. Christmas Eve, I wrapped 3 gifts for my younger sister Maya. She was driving up Christmas morning to spend the day with me, and I'd found her the perfect things. A leather journal she'd been eyeing for months, a vintage scarf from the antique shop in town, and a cookbook she mentioned wanting back in October. I wrapped them carefully at the kitchen table, placed them under the small tree in the living room, and went to bed around 11, feeling satisfied with myself. Christmas morning, I walked into the living room with my coffee and froze halfway to the couch. There were 10 gifts under the tree, 7 extra packages that I had absolutely no memory of wrapping. Each one had a name tag in handwriting that looked exactly like mine. Emma, Lucas, Olivia, Sarah. Some of the names appeared on multiple gifts. The wrapping paper was from the same roll I'd used for Maya's presents. The ribbon matched perfectly. Even the way the corners were folded was identical to the method I always use, the one Grant taught me when I was little. But I live completely alone out here. I wrapped 3 gifts last night, not 10. The handwriting was too perfect. My hands were shaking as I picked up the first mysterious package. The tag read, "For Emma," in handwriting that was unmistakably, impossibly mine. Not similar, not close. Mine. Down to the way I loop my capital E, the specific slant of my lowercase letters, the little flourish at the end of the A. I unwrapped it slowly, my coffee forgotten on the side table. Inside was a vintage children's book, with cloth binding and pages yellowed at the edges. The Secret Garden, from 1953. Beautiful, old, completely unfamiliar. I'd never seen this book before in my life. A Polaroid photograph slipped out from between the pages and landed face up on my lap. It was a picture of me sleeping on this couch, the very couch I'm sitting on right now as I type this. I was wearing my blue pajamas, the ones I wore to bed 3 nights ago. The angle was from across the room, somewhere near the bookshelf. In the bottom right corner, someone had written a date in white ink, 3 days earlier. I live completely alone in this cottage. Every door was locked last night. Every window was sealed against the December cold. The nearest neighbor is 2 miles down the road, and someone had been inside my house, standing in my living room in the dark, photographing me while I slept. Every lock was exactly where it should be. The first thing I did was search the entire cottage. Every room, every closet, every corner where someone could have hidden. I checked the locks on both doors, the front entrance and the back door that leads to the woodshed. Both were locked from the inside, deadbolts engaged, exactly as I'd left them before bed. Every window was latched shut, the kind of old-fashioned latches Gran never replaced, the kind you can't manipulate from outside even if you wanted to. Nothing was disturbed, nothing was out of place, except for those 7 impossible gifts under my tree. I made myself sit back down on the couch and look at the remaining packages. My hands were still trembling as I picked up the second one. The tag read, "For Lucas," in my handwriting. Inside was a wooden toy train, hand-carved and painted, the kind of craftsmanship you don't see anymore. The wood was worn smooth in places, like it had been loved by small hands for years. I'd never seen it before in my life. The third gift, labeled "For Olivia," contained a hand-knitted scarf in pale yellow wool. The stitching was intricate, professional. The fourth was a ceramic music box with a ballerina inside. The paint faded and chipped in that specific way that only comes with age. For Sarah. All vintage items. All things I had no memory of purchasing, wrapping, or even seeing before this morning. The camera had been there for months. I tried to think of rational explanations. Had I gotten blackout drunk and done this without remembering? But I don't drink. Haven't touched alcohol since college. A medical episode of some kind? A seizure maybe, or some kind of fugue state, where I'd driven to town, bought vintage toys and children's books, come home, wrapped them all, and photographed myself sleeping, all without any conscious memory of it? That didn't make sense either. I've never had seizures, never sleepwalked, never had any kind of episode that would explain missing hours or days of time. And then, my eyes landed on the Polaroid camera, sitting on the bookshelf across the room. I'd found it in Grand's attic when I moved in, tucked in a box with some of her old photo albums. I'd put it on the shelf because it looked nice, vintage and nostalgic, but I'd never bought film for it. Film for those old cameras is expensive and hard to find. I'd certainly never loaded it, never used it, never set it up across the room from my couch to photograph myself while I slept. I walked over and picked it up with shaking hands. It was loaded with film, fresh film. The counter showed 7 exposures remaining, which meant 3 pictures had already been taken. Maya knew something. Maya arrived around 11 in the morning. I met her at the door, and she could tell immediately that something was wrong. I showed her everything. The 10 gifts under the tree when there should have been 3. The vintage items I'd never seen before. The tags in my handwriting, every loop and slant perfectly matched. And then I showed her the Polaroid. Her face went white. Her hands started shaking so badly she nearly dropped the photograph. And when she looked up at me, there was something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not just shock, something deeper, something that looked almost like recognition. Maya, I said slowly, have you ever seen me do anything like this before? Anything strange, at night? She shook her head too quickly. No, God no. Paige, this is terrifying. But the way she couldn't meet my eyes told me she was lying. That night, I set up my laptop on the bookshelf, angled toward the living room and the tree. Maya wanted to stay, but I sent her home. I needed to see what would happen when I was alone. I needed to catch whatever or whoever was doing this, and some part of me needed proof on camera that I wasn't losing my mind. I went to bed with the laptop recording and my bedroom door locked from the inside. I grew up rural, and all cottages have all kinds of ventilation problems with ancient heating systems. But the matching handwriting is the detail that makes my skin crawl. That level of fine motor control while asleep shouldn't be possible. My mother had a slow gas leak that caused her to lose entire hours and find notes she'd written with no memory of writing them. Please take the carbon monoxide possibility seriously before you spiral into paranoia. This is either carbon monoxide poisoning or a severe sleepwalking disorder. Get a detector installed today before you assume anything paranormal. People have died from gas leaks that cause hallucinations first. I ordered a detector and it arrives tomorrow. The furnace is original to the house from the 80s, and I've never had it serviced since I moved in last year. My grandmother lived here for decades and never mentioned problems, but she also never talked about the cottage's history at all. She watched the footage the next morning. I found out why I was wrapping those gifts. I watched the laptop footage this morning and I'm still shaking. At 2:15 in the morning, my bedroom door opened. I walked out into the living room in my pajamas, moving with perfect coordination, completely asleep. For 40 minutes, I wrapped gifts, methodical, careful. My handwriting on the tags was as neat as if I were wide awake. I set up the Polaroid camera on its timer, adjusted the angle, positioned myself on the couch. I photographed myself sleeping. The worst part was that I was talking the entire time, having full conversations with empty air, nodding, smiling, laughing softly, responding to questions I couldn't hear, pausing as if listening to answers. When Maya arrived, I showed her the footage. She went white, then broke down crying so hard she couldn't breathe. Through the tears, she confessed. She'd seen this happen last Christmas, when she stayed overnight. She'd watch me sleepwalk at 3 in the morning, wrapping presents, talking to nothing. She was too terrified to tell me for an entire year. I feel utterly betrayed. The property records told a different story. After Maya left, I spent hours digging through online property records and old newspaper archives, desperate for any explanation. The cottage's previous owner, before my grandmother, a woman named Catherine Miller, lost 4 children to carbon monoxide poisoning on Christmas Eve, 1987. The brief article listed their ages, their bedrooms, the faulty furnace that killed them in their sleep. It listed their names: Emma, age 9, Lucas, age 7, Olivia, age 5, Sarah, age 3. The same names on the gift tags, the same names I'd been writing in my sleep, the same children I'd apparently been talking to on that security footage, nodding and smiling at empty air in the middle of the night. You need to research the property records for your cottage, going back as far as you can. Rural homes can have dark histories that never made local papers. Talk to elderly neighbors if any live nearby. The Polaroids are what terrify me most. Someone had to be standing right next to you while you were unconscious. Have you checked every room for hidden cameras in the walls or vents? The fact they're actual Polaroids instead of digital photos makes it stranger. Who even uses instant film anymore, except for deliberate aesthetic choices? This feels purposefully vintage, like someone's recreating something. The furnace inspector arrived the next day. The carbon monoxide detector I'd ordered showed dangerous levels throughout the cottage. The furnace inspector found a slow leak in the heating system, the kind of failure that could cause memory loss, confusion, vivid hallucinations. He said I was lucky to be alive. The repairs took 3 days. After that, everything changed. I slept normally. No more sleepwalking. No gaps in memory. For 6 weeks, I lived like a normal person. I started to believe it had all been the poisoning, that my grief-soaked brain, starved of oxygen, had latched onto the tragedy of those 4 children and turned it into a nightmare. I almost convinced myself. Then, one February morning, I woke up standing barefoot in the living room, in my nightgown, facing the empty corner where the Christmas tree had been. I had absolutely no memory of getting out of bed, no memory of walking into this room, no memory of standing here in the dark. The carbon monoxide detector on the wall showed normal levels, green light, safe. The poison explained the confusion. I've been thinking about what the inspector said, how carbon monoxide poisoning can cause memory loss and hallucinations, how it explained the sleepwalking, the lost time, the conversations with nothing. But it doesn't explain why I was wrapping gifts for children who died 39 years ago. It doesn't explain why I knew their names before I found the property records. It doesn't explain the vintage items, things I'd never owned or seen, that matched the era when those children were alive. The carbon monoxide explains some of it, the confusion, the memory gaps, the symptoms. But something else learned to live in this cottage long before I arrived. Something that whispered names to me in my sleep. Something that guided my hands while I wrapped presents for children who would never open them. And it still knows my handwriting. I've done wild things while sleepwalking, but never anything requiring this much coordination. Wrapping gifts with neat creases and writing legible gift tags needs focus that doesn't exist during sleep states. Sell that cottage immediately. Whatever's there has been feeding on your presence, and the carbon monoxide only made you more vulnerable. Places remember tragedy, and some things never leave. You need a spiritual cleansing, done by someone who knows what they're doing. Sage isn't gonna cut it for this. Find a medium or priest who specializes in residual hauntings. Do not stay there alone again. So what would you do if you found yourself writing in your sleep? On to the next one. Gas station attendants keep mentioning someone in my backseat, but I'm always alone. The drive was supposed to clear my head. I'm a 26-year-old data analyst living in an apartment with my partner, Owen. We've been together for 3 years, and things have been good, mostly. My younger sister, Maya, lives about an hour away, and she's always telling me I need to stand up for myself more. Last weekend, Owen and I had one of our worst fights. It was about my career, my independence, all the usual pressure points. He thinks I work too much, that I'm too focused on my job. I think he wants me to be more dependent on him. The argument got heated, voices raised, and I just needed to get out. I have a friend who owns a cabin about 4 hours north, and she's always said I could use it whenever. I texted her, threw some clothes in a bag, and hit the road Friday evening. Owen barely looked at me when I left. The drive was quiet, just me and the highway, which was exactly what I needed. He said it like it was nothing. About 2 hours in, I pulled into a small gas station in the middle of nowhere. One of those places with 2 pumps and a building that looks like it hasn't been updated since the 1970s. I filled up, then went inside to grab snacks. The attendant was an older guy, probably in his 60s, friendly enough. I grabbed chips, beef jerky, and water. When I put them on the counter, he rang me up and then reached for a package of gummy bears from the rack. "Your friend in the back wanted these too," he said, adding them to my total. I stared at him. "What?" "Your friend," he repeated, gesturing toward the parking lot. "In your backseat. They pointed at these when you drove up." My stomach dropped. I turned and looked through the window at my car. The backseat was empty, completely empty. I paid quickly and walked back to my car. I opened every door. I checked the backseat, under the seats, even popped the trunk. Nothing. No one. I'd been alone the entire drive. When I went back inside, the attendant looked at me like I was crazy. "Is something wrong?" "There's no one in my car," I said. "There never was." He frowned, looking genuinely confused. I could have sworn I saw someone. I left without another word, hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. I kept telling myself it was a mistake. I drove for another 20 minutes, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. My mind kept replaying the attendant's words. "Your friend in the back." He had sounded so certain, so casual, like he was stating a simple fact. I pulled over onto the shoulder and called Owen. He picked up on the third ring, voice flat. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Something really weird just happened at a gas station." I told him everything. About the attendant, about what he said, about checking the car and finding nothing. There was a long pause on the other end. "Brooke, you're stressed," Owen said finally. "The guy probably saw a shadow or a jacket on the seat. You're overthinking this because of our fight." He was specific, Owen. He said my friend in the back wanted gummy bears. That's not a shadow. "You've been driving for hours right after a huge argument. Your mind is probably playing tricks. Maybe you should just come home and we can talk this out." The dismissiveness in his tone made my chest tighten. This was exactly why I had left. "I'm fine. I just wanted to tell someone." "Okay, well, drive safe, I guess." He hung up before I could respond. I sat there on the side of the highway, alone, feeling more isolated than I had all night. The second station was worse. An hour later, I needed gas again. I pulled into a larger station with fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. A younger guy, maybe in his early 30s, was working the register. I grabbed a coffee and a protein bar, hands still shaking. When I went to pay, he glanced past me toward the parking lot. "Your passenger want anything?" he asked. My entire body went cold. "What did you say?" "The person in your back seat," he repeated. "I saw them when you pulled up. Just checking if they need anything too." I couldn't breathe. "There's no one in my car." He frowned and leaned over to look through the window. "Huh. Could have sworn I saw someone back there. My bad, I guess." I threw money on the counter and ran outside. I tore open every door. Backseat empty. Trunk empty. I checked under the seats, behind the headrests, everywhere. Nothing. No one. 2 different people at 2 different stations, miles apart. The same impossible thing. I sat in the driver's seat, shaking. I considered turning back, driving home, forgetting the cabin. But the thought of Owen's dismissive tone made me push forward. I arrived just after midnight and spent 30 minutes checking every inch of my car with my phone's flashlight before going inside. I locked every door, every window, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Two strangers with no connection to each other had both seen the exact same impossible thing. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I spent the entire night at the cabin, unable to sleep. I kept going over it in my mind. Two different people at two different gas stations, miles apart with no connection to each other. Both saw someone in my backseat. Both were certain. I texted Maya around 3 a.m, told her everything. She called me immediately, worried. She suggested I come stay with her instead, but I told her I was safe, that I just needed to process this. She made me promise to check in every few hours. I started questioning myself. Was I losing my mind? Had the stress of the fight with Owen triggered something? Maybe the stress had finally broken something in my brain. But the attendants saw someone too. They both saw someone who wasn't there. That wasn't a hallucination. That was two independent witnesses describing the same impossible thing. I went outside and checked my car again in the daylight, tore apart the back seat, looking for something that could create the illusion of a person. I found nothing. The cabin felt less like a refuge and more like a trap. I kept the doors locked and the lights on. I posted the whole story on Reddit that morning because I didn't know what else to do. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't completely losing my grip on reality. The comments flooded in. OP, please get a carbon monoxide detector right now. Hallucinations, confusion, memory gaps. This sounds exactly like CO poisoning. It can kill you. Check your car in the cabin immediately. This sounds like it could be a serious medical issue. Stress and sleep deprivation can cause hallucinations. You should see a doctor as soon as possible, especially if you're seeing things others aren't. Something about this feels really wrong to me. Two different people seeing the exact same thing isn't a coincidence. Do you have a dash cam? If you do, check every second of that footage. This might not be in your head. This is genuinely terrifying, but have you considered mass hysteria or suggestion? Maybe the first attendant said something that primed you to see shadows differently? Two strangers at different locations wouldn't have mass hysteria about the same specific detail. This is something else. She posted an update 2 days later. I found out who was really in my backseat. I'm back home now. I cut the cabin trip short and drove straight back yesterday. I couldn't stop thinking about what one of the commenters said about checking dashcam footage. I forgot I even had a dashcam. I installed it 6 months ago after a near miss with a truck, and I never think about it. It has interior recording. I pulled the SD card and went through every single frame from the drive up. It took me hours. At hour 1, timestamp 11:47 p.m., I stopped at a highway rest stop to use the bathroom. I locked the car and went inside. The footage shows me walking away. 3 minutes later, Owen appears on screen. He walks up to my car. He has a key. He opens the rear door and climbs into the back seat. He brought a dark blanket. He stays low, completely hidden. When I come back and get in the driver's seat, he's right behind me. I can see him on the footage, crouched down, perfectly still. At the first gas station, when I go inside, he sits up just enough to be visible through the window. The attendant sees him. Then he ducks back down before I return. The same thing at the second station. He times it perfectly. Sits up when I'm not looking, makes sure the attendant sees him, then hides again before I check. He was in my car the entire time, 4 hours. He followed me to a rest stop, broke into my car, and hid in my backseat to make me think I was losing my mind. I don't know what to do. I'm staying with Maya right now. I can't go back to the apartment. The comments erupted. The fact that he was so calm when you told him about it is the biggest red flag. He was dismissing your fear because he already knew the truth. Exactly. Abusers always tell you you're overreacting or imagining things when they're the ones orchestrating it. Classic Darvo tactics. Something similar happened to my cousin on a drive through Nevada. Turned out her ex had been telling her for 3 days. Trust your gut and get somewhere safe. OP, you need to go to the police immediately with that footage. This is stalking and psychological abuse. File a report and get a restraining order today. Do not go back to that apartment alone. please contact the domestic violence hotline. What he did was deliberate psychological torture, designed to make you question reality. This is abuse escalation. You are in danger. I confronted him with the evidence. I went back to the apartment with Maya and a police officer. Owen was home. I showed him the dashcam footage. I washed his face as he saw himself climbing into my backseat at the rest stop, hiding under the blanket, sitting up at the gas stations to make the attendants see him. He didn't deny it. He looked almost relieved. "You're too focused on your career," he said. "I thought if you had a breakdown, you'd quit that job and depend on me more. We could go back to how things were." He wanted me to think I was losing my mind, so I would become completely dependent on him. He planned everything. He tracked my location, followed me to the rest stop, and waited for his chance to climb in. The officer took my statement and the footage. I filed for a restraining order that day and grabbed my essentials. I'm staying with Maya now while apartment hunting. The person I trusted completely spent 4 hours hiding in my backseat, orchestrating my psychological breakdown for control. What I thought was a relationship turned out to be a cage he was building around me. The comments kept coming in. "Have you considered carbon monoxide exposure? Sometimes faulty exhaust systems can cause hallucinations and memory gaps. Get your car checked." "Have you considered carbon monoxide exposure? Sometimes faulty exhaust systems can cause hallucinations and memory gaps. Get your car checked." I appreciate the concern, but it wasn't carbon monoxide. It was Owen. He was physically in my car the entire time, hiding in the back seat. The dashcam footage shows everything. 2 gas station attendants saw him because he wanted them to. This is textbook abuse escalation. He isolated you, gaslit you, and tried to make you doubt your own reality. These are the exact tactics abusers use before they escalate to physical violence. Exactly. The gaslighting was strategic. He wanted her financially and emotionally dependent so she couldn't leave. This is how controlling relationships trap people. You did everything right. Getting out immediately, filing the restraining order, documenting everything. So many people don't make it out of situations like this. You saved yourself. On to the next one. A stranger on my commute stands up the exact moment I do, every single day. I'm a 29-year-old real estate agent living in a rural cottage about an hour outside the city. My partner, Evan, and I moved out here 2 years ago for the quiet, but it means I'm on the train 5 days a week for work. The commute's long, but I don't mind it, usually. At least I didn't until about a month ago when I started noticing him. There's this man on my train, mid-40s maybe, always in business casual, always sits a few rows ahead of me. Same carriage, same general area, but he never looks directly at me. That part's normal enough. What's not normal is that he stands up to get off at my stop at the exact same moment I do. Every single time. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. Same stop, same schedule, whatever. But then I realized it doesn't matter which train I take. Early train at 6:45, late train at 8:30, different carriage, he's there. And the timing is too perfect. It's not that we both stand when the train slows. It's that the second I shift in my seat to stand, he's already moving. Like we're connected by some invisible thread. She needed to know if she was losing her mind. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he recognizes me and we just happen to get off at the same place. Maybe he's noticed the same pattern I have and it's become this weird, unspoken routine between strangers. But none of that explains how he knows the exact moment I'm about to stand. Not after I stand. The moment I decide to. That split second before my body actually moves. He's already shifting his weight, already reaching for his bag, already half standing. This morning I tested it. We were still 3 stops away from mine when I suddenly stood up, just to see what would happen. No warning, no pattern, just stood straight up in the middle of a tunnel. He stood up immediately, didn't even hesitate. Just stood there in the aisle, looking confused, like his body moved before his brain caught up to why. When I sat back down, he sat back down. We did this awkward little dance for maybe 10 seconds before I felt too exposed and stayed seated, heart pounding. I got off at my actual stop, shaking. This isn't coincidence anymore. This is something else. I don't know what this is, but I'm officially creeped out. He knew when she would move before she did. I spent the next week trying to break the pattern. Monday, I took the 6:20 train instead of my usual 7:15. He was there. Tuesday, I stayed late at the office and caught the 8:45. He was there. Wednesday, I switched to a different carriage entirely, stood at the opposite end of the train. He was still there, different seat, different spot. But the moment I stood to exit, he stood too. I started studying him. Mid-40s, always in business casual. Khakis or dress pants, button-down shirts, sometimes a sport coat. Dark hair graying at the temples. He carries a leather messenger bag and reads on his phone most of the ride. Never once looks directly at me. Not when he stands, not when we're both on the platform, not when we're walking toward the exit in the same direction. It's like I don't exist to him, except for that one instant when our movements line up. I tried varying when I stand too, right when the train pulls in, waiting until the last possible second. Doesn't matter. He matches me every time. I'm analyzing every tiny movement I make now, wondering if I'm telegraphing something unconsciously, some signal I don't even know I'm sending. The question wasn't if he was watching, it was how. The paranoia is worse now. I catch myself looking over my shoulder on the platform. I've started boarding at random doors, sitting in different cars, standing in different positions when it's crowded. Nothing breaks it. He's always there, always standing when I do. Part of me wonders if I'm making this bigger than it is. Maybe this is just an extremely specific coincidence, and my brain is pattern matching because that's what brains do when they're scared. Maybe we both live near the same stop, and our schedules overlap in this one bizarre way. Maybe he's noticed me staring, and now he's doing it deliberately, as some weird joke. Maybe I'm being followed, and this is surveillance. Maybe he has no idea any of this is happening, and I'm the one who's become obsessed. I haven't told Evan. What would I even say? There's a stranger on my commute who stands when I do? It sounds insane, even to me. But I've tested this multiple times, and every single time he mirrors me. That's not random. That can't be random. I just don't know what it is. She was right. It wasn't random. I started keeping a log 3 days ago. Times, dates, what he's wearing, which train, which carriage. I have entries like Monday 7:15, blue button down, gray pants, stood at 7:52 when I did, and Wednesday 6:45, white shirt, khakis, stood at 7:28. Seeing it written now makes it worse. The precision is real. I almost told Evan last night. We were having dinner and he asked how my day was, and I opened my mouth to say it, but then I stopped. How do I explain this without sounding paranoid? A stranger stands when you stand, so what? But it's the timing, the synchronization, the way he stood up mid-ride when I tested him. I've been varying everything, standing at different spots in the carriage, testing exits at random stops. He mirrors every time. If I stand at a stop that isn't ours, he stands. If I sit back down, he sits. If I wait for our actual stop, we both exit like nothing happened. It's like he's locked onto me and I can't break it. I thought about going to the police yesterday, but what would I even report? A man stands when I stand on the train? There's no threat, no contact, no actual crime. He's never approached me, never spoken to me, never done anything except exist in the same space and move when I move. That's not illegal. But I'm scared now. This has been going on for over a month. Every morning I wake up hoping today will be different. Every morning he's there. Same timing, same synchronization, same eerie precision. I've stopped sleeping well. I keep thinking about it on the platform, on the walk home, lying in bed next to Evan, who has no idea. Part of me wants to drive to work instead, avoid the train completely. But that's a 2-hour commute each way, and I can't afford the gas. And why should I change my entire routine because of this? I haven't done anything wrong. I just want to understand what's happening. The answers were coming, but not the way she expected. The fact that he stood up when you did mid-ride proves this isn't coincidence. Document everything with dates and times. This gave me chills. Please be safe and tell someone you trust where you are at all times. Could he be tracking your phone? The timing seems too perfect for just visual following. I thought about that too and turned off location services for a week. It didn't make any difference. He still matched my exits perfectly. Whatever method he's using, it's not my phone. She had no idea how close the truth was. The answer was waiting at the platform. I confronted my partner and learned the truth about his past. This morning changed everything. I got off at my stop like usual and was walking toward the exit when the man approached me. Not following at a distance anymore, he walked directly up to me and said my name. I froze. He pulled out a business card and credentials, private investigator. My first thought was that this was some elaborate threat, but then he said he needed to talk to me about Evan. That's when my stomach dropped. He told me he'd been hired by Evan's wife. Wife, not ex-wife, current wife. They're in the middle of a custody battle over their 2 kids. Kids I didn't know existed. He'd been documenting my routine for the past month as evidence that Evan has a stable live-in partner, which apparently matters for custody cases. The synchronization wasn't about watching me specifically. He was tracking when I left for work each day to establish Evan's domestic stability, proving someone was living with him consistently. Whenever I stood to leave the train, it confirmed the timing of someone sharing his household routine. Evan told me 2 years ago that he was divorced. Said it was finalized 3 years before we even met. He showed me the house, talked about his ex like she was ancient history, made it sound like he'd been single for years before I came along. Complete lie. Every word. He's still married right now. The divorce was only filed 6 months ago, and he's been using me the entire time as evidence that he's moved on, that he has a stable new relationship, something that helps his case for custody of children I never knew existed. I'm sitting in a coffee shop because I can't go back to that house. I can't look at him. Everything I thought I knew about us is built on lies. I thought I was moving in with a divorced man, starting fresh. Instead, I'm the other woman in a marriage that never ended, a prop in a custody battle. I had something similar happen, and it turned out to be a private investigator for an insurance case. Not saying that's what this is, but it might not be as sinister as you think. This is beyond creepy. Have you considered going to the police? What would she even report though? A guy getting off at the same subway stop? They'd laugh her out of the station, unless he actually does something threatening. The threat exploded with people telling her to confront him immediately. She needed answers. I went back to the cottage that evening. Evan was in the kitchen making dinner like everything was normal. I could smell garlic and tomatoes. He smiled when I walked in, asked how my day was. I looked at him and asked directly if he was still married. The smile disappeared. The look on his face told me everything before he said a word. He admitted it all, still legally married. His wife, his actual current wife, filed for divorce 6 months ago. They have 2 kids together, a daughter who's 7 and a son who's 9. Children I never knew existed. The custody battle is messy and ongoing. For 2 years, he'd been telling me he was divorced, that the divorce was finalized years before we even met. Complete fabrication. He was only separated when we started dating. The divorce was never finalized. He led me believe we were building a life together when I was really just a supporting character in his custody case. Evidence that he'd moved on and had a stable household. I asked why. Why lie about something this fundamental for this long? He said he was going to tell me once the divorce was final, that he didn't want to scare me off by saying he was technically still married, that he loved me and didn't want to lose me. All the predictable words someone says when they've been caught. I packed a bag that night, just essentials, clothes, laptop, important documents. I'm staying with a friend now while I figure out what comes next. I've already contacted a lawyer to make sure I'm not legally entangled in any of this mess. I've blocked Devin on every platform. He's tried calling a dozen times, but I have nothing left to say to him. The worst part is that I trusted him completely. I rearranged my entire life to move out to that cottage with him. Gave up my apartment in the city, changed my whole routine, committed to that brutal commute every day, because I thought we were building something real together. And he used me. He used my presence, my schedule, my existence in his house as evidence that he's a stable partner worthy of custody. I wasn't his girlfriend. I was a prop in his legal strategy. Everything I thought we had was built on lies. I'm done. I'm moving on. And I'm never looking back. Do you have any idea what he wants? Have you tried confronting him in a public place? And with that, on to the next story. I think my brother, 32M, has been breaking into my house, and the 3-year-old I babysit told me. She drew it perfectly. I'm Derek, 27F, and I work as a children's librarian at the county library. I live alone in the house I inherited when my dad passed away 2 years ago. It's a small 3-bedroom place on a quiet street. Nothing fancy, but it's mine and I love it. I've spent the last 2 years making it feel like home. On weekend evenings, I babysit Emma, who just turned 3. Her mom, Sarah, is a nurse who works weekend night shifts at the hospital, and Emma is the sweetest, easiest kid you could ask for. We have our routine down. We read picture books, color, watch cartoons, eat chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs. Simple stuff. Emma talks constantly, the way toddlers do, chattering about her day and her toys and her preschool friends and whatever random thought pops into her head. Last Saturday, Emma was drawing with crayons at my kitchen table while I cleaned up after dinner. She pushed the picture across to me, very proud of her work. It showed a stick figure sitting at a computer. There was a lamp beside the computer that she'd drawn as a lumpy gray blob with a long trunk curving upward. My elephant lamp, the ceramic one on my home office desk upstairs. She's never been upstairs in my house. I asked Emma what she drew, keeping my voice as normal and cheerful as I could manage. She beamed at me and said it was Uncle James at Miss Derek's computer, looking at papers. She pointed to the crayon drawers beneath the desk and explained very seriously that Uncle James opens them like he's searching for treasure, the way pirates do. My brother James is 32. He's had my emergency spare key since Dad died 2 years ago, just in case something happens and someone needs to get into the house. Emma has never met James. I've never mentioned him to her or to Sarah or to anyone in their family. But she just described my home office in perfect detail, down to that elephant-shaped lamp I bought at an estate sale 6 months ago and never photographed or posted anywhere online. Emma kept coloring, humming a song from one of her cartoons, completely unaware that she just turned my entire world upside down. I stood there at the kitchen sink with a dish towel in my hands, completely frozen. How would a 3-year-old know what my office looks like? How would she know about the lamp, about the desk, about someone methodically going through the drawers? The only answer that made sense was the one I desperately didn't want to believe. My brother has been letting himself into my house when I'm not home. He's had that key for 2 years. She couldn't unknow it. After Sarah picked Emma up that night, I drove home in complete silence. No music, no podcast, just my breathing and the engine hum. I kept replaying Emma's words. Uncle James, the computer, the drawers, the elephant lamp. I sat in my driveway for 10 minutes before I could make myself go inside. The house looked normal. Front door locked, window secure. I walked through each room with every light on. Living room, fine. Kitchen, fine. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, my heart pounding in my throat. My bedroom looked untouched. Bed made the way I'd left it. Closet door closed. Dresser drawers shut properly. But then I noticed my desk chair. It was angled slightly toward the window, instead of pushed in straight the way I always leave it. Such a small thing. Maybe I'd left it that way myself and forgotten. I went to my office down the hall. The filing cabinet drawer wasn't fully closed, just a 1/4-inch gap. I always push it shut completely, because the lock doesn't engage otherwise. Papers on my desk seemed slightly shuffled, not quite in the neat stack I'd left them in that morning. Every detail felt like evidence. I went through every drawer in my desk, every folder in my filing cabinet, trying to figure out if anything was missing. I couldn't tell. Nothing seemed obviously gone. But how would I know if someone had carefully looked through everything and put it back? Emma would notice though. A 3-year-old doesn't lie about things like this. She doesn't have the imagination to invent a detailed description of a room she's never seen. She knew about the elephant lamp. She knew about the desk drawers. She called him Uncle James. James has had that spare key for 2 years, ever since Dad's funeral. Mom insisted someone in the family should have emergency access, in case I got locked out or something happened. I trusted him. He's my brother. We're not especially close, but we're family. The thought that he would use that key to let himself into my house and go through my belongings without my knowledge felt impossible. But Emma's description wasn't impossible. It was specific and real. The only explanation that made sense was the one I desperately didn't want to accept. My brother has been breaking into my house. She needed proof. The cameras would tell the truth. I ordered 2 hidden cameras online and paid for overnight shipping. They arrived the next day, small black cubes that looked like phone chargers. I positioned one on my bedroom dresser behind a picture frame, angled toward the closet and door. The other went on a bookshelf in my office, pointed at my desk and filing cabinet. I set them to motion-activated recording and synced them to an app on my phone. Then I went to work, like it was any normal Wednesday. That weekend, I babysat Emma again. I acted completely normal, reading her the same picture books, making the same dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. She chatted away while we colored, talking about her week at preschool and her favorite cartoon characters. Then, completely unprompted, she mentioned the special room with all the books. She meant my office. She said Uncle James types on the computer there and looks very serious, like her daddy does when he works from home. She mimicked typing in the air, her little fingers moving carefully over imaginary keys. I asked her what else Uncle James does in that room. She said he opens drawers and looks at papers, then puts them back, but sometimes in the wrong spots. She giggled when she said that part, like it was funny that a grown-up would mess up putting things away. There he was. I reviewed the camera footage during my lunch break at the library, sitting in the staff room with my headphones on and my office door locked. The bedroom camera had captured James entering my room at 11:45 Tuesday morning. He walked straight to my closet, opened it, and pulled out the file box where I keep all of Dad's estate documents. He sat on my bed and went through every folder, every paper, methodically photographing pages with his phone. He spent 23 minutes in my bedroom. Then he put everything back, closed the closet door, and left. The office camera showed him at my desk at 12:17 the same day. He opened every drawer, looked through my filing cabinet, even turned on my computer. He typed for several minutes. I could see his face clearly in the frame, focused, deliberate, completely calm. Like he had every right to be there. He was searching for something specific, and he'd been doing this while I was at work, probably for weeks or months, completely confident I would never know. Emma had been telling me the truth the entire time. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. I called Sarah immediately and told her everything, what Emma had said, what the cameras had caught. She was horrified and apologetic and thanked me for letting her know. She said James would never be allowed around Emma again. Did you ask Emma exactly what she saw James doing? Kids that age can be surprisingly specific about details adults miss. I did ask her. She said he uses the computer like Daddy does for work and looks at papers and puts them back wrong. She even mentioned he opens the closet door in the bedroom. I have a file box in that closet with all my father's estate documents. I genuinely thought she was just playing pretend or mixing up stories. I feel sick that I didn't question it sooner. This is beyond creepy. Change every lock immediately and check your place for hidden cameras or tracking devices he might have planted. If he was that comfortable going through your things, who knows what else he did? The fact that he pumped a toddler for information about you, without even realizing how wrong that is, makes my skin crawl. Thank God Emma's parents are taking this seriously. The inheritance explained everything. He showed up at my work 3 times this week. I confronted James 2 days after I saw the footage. I called him and told him I needed my spare key back immediately. He showed up at my house that evening, acting confused and defensive. He claimed he was just checking on the house occasionally to make sure everything was okay, that he thought I would appreciate him looking after the place. When I told him I had cameras and I knew exactly what he'd been doing, his whole demeanor changed. He got angry, said I was overreacting, that it was his right as family to know what was happening with Dad's estate. That's when I understood. I went back through months of camera footage. James has been breaking in since at least October, maybe longer. Dad's will was finally probated 6 months ago. I inherited the house. James received nothing because Dad left everything to me, in a trust that was set up years before he got sick. James has been systematically searching for the original will documents, the trust paperwork, anything he could use to challenge the inheritance. Then, Sarah called me yesterday. She said James came by their house 3 days ago, asking what specific days I babysit Emma and whether I ever mentioned my work schedule to them. He's been using a 3-year-old child to gather intelligence about my movements, so he'd know when the house would be empty. And now he's escalating. He showed up at the library where I work on Monday, Wednesday, and today. He doesn't approach me or say anything. He just stands in the biography section, where he has a clear view of the circulation desk, and watches me for 20 or 30 minutes before he leaves. My coworkers have noticed. My supervisor asked if everything was okay. I don't know what to tell them. I changed all my locks yesterday, but I'm terrified of what he might do next. Document everything with dates and times. Keep all the camera footage. If he contests the will or tries anything legal, this pattern of behavior will matter. Also, get that restraining order, now, not later. Please tell me you've checked your laptop for keyloggers and changed all your passwords. If he had access to your computer for months, he could have gotten into everything. I really hope you're taking this to the police. This is stalking and criminal trespass at minimum. Seconding this, even if he had a key originally, it became illegal the second she told him to stop. He's escalating and the library visits prove it. This kind of obsession over inheritance money doesn't just go away. The restraining order was approved. I went to the police the day after I posted the update. I brought all the camera footage, screenshots of the dates and times, everything. They took it seriously. The detective assigned to my case said the pattern of behavior was clear and concerning. I filed for a restraining order and it was approved within 48 hours. I changed every lock in the house. All new deadbolts, new keys, new everything. I told my supervisor at the library what was happening so she would know why James might show up. Sarah and her husband banned James from their home entirely and cut all contact with him. They were horrified when they realized he had been pumping Emma for information about me. James hasn't violated the restraining order yet, but he's skirting right up to the edge of it. He knows where the boundaries are and he's testing them. The library is technically a public space, so he can legally be there, but his supervisor called me 2 days ago to tell me James was standing in the same spot again, just watching. My coworkers walk me to my car now when my shift ends. She was safe, but the damage was done. I'm safe now. The locks are changed, the restraining order is active. James legally cannot come within 500 feet of my house. I installed a full security system last week, with cameras on every door and motion sensors on all the windows. I get alerts on my phone every time anything moves near my property. But I'm also completely shaken. I keep thinking about how someone who was supposed to protect me, who had that spare key for emergencies, spent months systematically violating my privacy. He went through my closet, my desk, my filing cabinets, my computer. He photographed my father's documents. He stood in my bedroom and methodically cataloged my life. And he used Emma, a 3-year-old child who trusted him, who had no idea she was being used as an intelligence source. He asked her questions about me, about my schedule, about when I would be gone, and she answered him because she didn't know any better. She was just talking to a grown-up the way kids do. I'm installing more cameras this weekend. I check the locks 3 times before bed every night. I don't think I'll ever feel completely safe in this house again, but at least now I know who to watch out for. Family betrayal hits different because you keep wanting to make excuses for them. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Trust your gut. He's already shown you who he is. Was your brother explicitly excluded from the will, or did your dad just leave everything to you? Either way, His behavior is unhinged, but it might explain the obsession. People get scary around money they think they deserved. Thanks for listening, and if you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button.